Good evening and welcome back for another week of State of the SEL. Bepic and Infernosis back in the Southeastern Esports League booth for another week of breaking down Rocket League and Valorant, because we're deep into playoffs now, Scott. Things have gotten serious.
Yeah, it feels like every single matchup every week is either going to pan out to be an SEO Classic or ultimately somehow be the team that makes it into the grand finals and has to fight for creating their own bit of legacy here for the program in the league.
And we've had some SEL classics. That Oklahoma UNC Charlotte match that we had on stream for Valorant last week, I was having a grand time watching that and having fun with the fans in chat as well. We had so many people in Twitch chat for that match, but I know we'll break it down in depth as we get into the show. But that one was so much fun.
Yeah, honestly, as one of the programs here for the ESA that's been for a long time, both teams, right, both for Charlotte and for Oklahoma, those are teams that have such great viewership consistently. Their fans are diehard. It's shockingly that they don't go at like the opposing team's throats as often as they do with how diehard of fans that they are. But you always know it's going to be a good broadcast. You have either of those two teams because they are active in the chat. They are hooting and hollering. They're coming up with copy pastas. I saw you copying a couple of those copy pastas. They're fucking trying to join in. They're coming up with stuff on the fly. It's just so good to occasionally look over on cast. You just be like, what the heck is going on over here?
Oh, I know. I was trying to stay as unbiased as possible, but whichever team did have more quality copy pastas, that was who I tended to lean toward, just based on my Twitch chat support. I mean, obviously, I just wanted it to go the distance, and I mean, it did. I think honestly, we can move into the highlighted matches because this one actually is first on the docket, so you can go ahead and break down the series for us, Scott. For those that didn't get to watch Oklahoma and Charlotte, because it went all three maps, and the first two were super close.
Yeah, it was ultimately the problem child of map 2, I think, for Oklahoma, because they never would have had to see map 3 if they just closed out the series on map 2. You start out really strong on map 1, 13-10. I think it was on Ascent at the time. You secure yourself a good victory. A lot of that comes off of this, just the wild amount of success that Suj was finding early on when you try to compare that for the opposing side for Sep, who was doing fine, I guess, but it wasn't like they were doing this huge standout run. I know a lot of their stats and everything don't show up because they were an on-stream game, so posting their match things are a little bit less important for them to pull the API for, but you pulled out of it game 2, and it had to go to OT. It was, I think, 5 rounds in a row for Charlotte to make the comeback on, I believe, Pearl, if I recollect correctly. But it then turned into a different story where it was Suj was doing pretty good, but it kind of felt like they were in a fellback role. They weren't finding as much success overall for Oklahoma, but they got off on the right foot. They weren't able to close the series out, and it then just becomes, there was a Lotus. It then just becomes this ultimate battle of shooting yourself in the foot because you were incapable to get the job done. And then that turns to the oh so embarrassing tale that was map 3 for Oklahoma. And this is where things just went completely wrong, 13-4. After a complete classic of map 1A and map 2, and me and Dallas were so excited doing this. We were sending DMs to each other like, this is crazy. Did you see this? We're like, this moment was nuts. Map 3 was a complete silence between us when we were correlating and talking between each other. It just was not maybe what we expected from. We knew that Oklahoma could play Icebox, but Charlotte Esports, they just performed so spectacularly for this map, and Oklahoma didn't really have an answer for it. They had a finish in 2, and unfortunately for them, they just could not get that job done there, Blake.
And it's unfortunate too because of how close those first 2 maps were. Like I was playing a little Minecraft world, getting in the spirit, with the movie out and all that. And the first 2 I was tabbing back and forth. It was in Twitch chat. You've obviously seen it already, but I was tabbing back and forth a lot. And then map 3 on Icebox, I was kind of able to lock into my Minecraft world a little bit. But still, it's always Oklahoma with these instant classics. Like you had the season 4 finals, them and Bruton Parker keeping us up until 5 in the morning the next morning, and Oklahoma just know how to deliver on the entertainment front.
Yeah, and even if they've had to like go through a bunch of roster changes previously, and things like that, and like recovering, it feels like still from everything. I feel like you can never truly count them out, and I never wanted to count them out on Icebox because you tend to see things like 9-3s for that map, and I think it ended like 8-4.5, right? So it was still doable, but then it just got worse when they failed to take the pistol, which is something they struggled with. I think the entire series. For Oklahoma, if I recollect correctly. It just was not the Oklahoma we knew. So their destiny is tied up elsewhere in other teams' victories and losses. And we'll touch a little bit as we get into the Val section for Maine. But the other 2 matches we really talk about are GMUB versus Lander. Now, this is a Lander team that just came off of a absolute trouncing of Florida White last week. A lot of it was led by Ariel. Lo-Fi ended up dropping 33 assists today, or last week, sorry. Q's got 12 plants and 23 assists, so they were very much so participating. They had a lot of, and this whole week, it really felt like it was all your tertiary players, not just your duelists, your heavy fraggers, right? It was the important people that were playing your objective roles, who were being constant facilitators of damage and utility expungement, right? This was where I felt like a lot of the value came from this week. And there just wasn't enough of that, I feel like, from Lander overall. Both maps were fairly close. Pearl went 13-9. Haven turned around for a 13-11 scoreline. And if you look over at Haven, because there wasn't anything too crazy, it felt like, yeah, again, top fragging from Fangs on map 1. But Haven should have gone to Lander. But if you go down here, Shaka, and scroll a little bit further and go to match results, at the bottom of the screen, actually, it'll be on the right side since you're full screen. I apologize. It'll be on the right side and go to whatever the match results are shown for this map. Ariel tried to save them for the longest time. Sorry, not Ariel. Fangs tried to save them for the longest time. They are Ariel in-game. That's just what their League OS thing is. So I'm correct, is Ariel. They tried to save them so long, like they did last week when we were highlighting them as a potential player of the week, and seems to be bringing value for Lander. But the rest of the team, 15 kills, 12 kills, 9 kills. Right. You're half, less than half of what Ariel was bringing to the table. And you look on the other side, you've got 3 players sitting at 19, knocking on the door of 20, a 14 for Mag. That's not a problem for him because they were still a very good participant. And then Yokai, who's still at 18. They were so consistently powerful that GMU were just, they look to be too heavy of a force. And I think a team that frags together, a team that stays consistent together, are the team that comes away with the victory. And Lander, man, I just can't see either map, especially map 2, which is the biggest problem of seeing such a difference when you're top and everyone else to lead to a win, and it goes the other way.
And right now in Rising Star, so George Mason B coming into Rising Star was the #1 seed just by all the tiebreakers that we used to seed the Rising Star playoffs. And I know they are one of the potential favorites to win the whole thing. Is them getting tested against Lander varsity like this a sign that maybe South Carolina or James Madison or Kentucky, whoever does end up facing them the next couple series, can be taken down?
I think it's very much on the rise, and I'll expound on it a little bit more when we get into May and we talk about the upcoming matches for them, because it is pretty important who they've got coming up as well. And then our final match from last week was JMU, which is another team that I think you can't sleep on, even no matter what their seeding is, just because you know who their main teams are. They faced off against Florida Boone. Obviously, Florida White got knocked out by Lander last week, like I mentioned. But I said I was going to crack a joke here, and I will. JMUB managed to do what their A team could not do, and actually won a map on Ascent. Wow. Of course, that was Cumberland Phoenix, but it is what it is. Love JMU to death. They tore apart Florida Blue. Pearl was a completely different story for JMU overall. Duraco was really the only person that was able to kind of limelight. This is one of the only times we saw a big player save and be the difference maker throughout this week for every single game. It was the only one where we saw a single player go absolutely crazy, a big difference from everyone else, and it felt like that was just a little bit of an edge. When you're talking about a 16-14 major overtime, it feels like there's this turbulent sense of dread of, if we don't see Duraco manage to find a frag or two in these rounds in OT, we're going to lose. And I think that's only what it came down to, because you're top frag Duraco on Jets, and then turn it all the way around M-Clash, who typically doesn't have very bad games. M-Clash is a very good player. Unfortunately, could not come alive on map 2 for them. And so you were basically sandwiching the leaderboard for their post-result screen of having Jet on top and Jet on bottom, and then everything else in between was just a total gamble between everybody. And Duraco as well, keep in mind, you only get 12 rounds on offense and defense, and you want to try to be the facilitator of the first one out there if you're a Jet on the offense. And Duraco was able to get 12 first bloods throughout that second map. If they didn't get that and close out that victory, I do think Florida very well could have taken a map 3 in one map 3, because Duraco would have likely been back-backing a bit too hard and probably would have been pretty exhausted there playing.
I mean, all this is single elim as well, so there's so much extra pressure to close out your series when you have the chance. Like for JMU right here, they kind of did what Oklahoma didn't do in that on-stream matchup that they played against Charlotte, where in map 2, after they had a pretty good start to the series, they actually did win the overtime and dodge that map 3, because you go to map 3, you could see the script completely flip on you.
Yeah, it's so difficult for Val when the pressure is on you, right? Get a little bit of a break in the LCQ sometimes, like for the teams that are working towards playoffs. Round 2 was just kind of a seeding game, so there wasn't a lot of stress for it. But teams still really want to play with their life in the line, because you didn't want to be the team that then had to, if they won their next game, had to face either the Cumberland rosters or whatever, right? But for Rising Stars, these are teams like we titled, they're Rising Stars. They want to prove that they are the brightest star out there, and knowing that a single mistake can kind of tear down any potential turn you into a shooting star, plummeting down right out of your peripheral. It's not a good spot to necessarily sit in. It's something that I think they, as rising stars and the room for improvement that they have, will do a whole lot better heading into next semester. And I hope that they get to keep majority, if not all, of their players. And if they don't, then I hope the success of scouting and recruiting for them gets them a good fill to kind of equalize things out. Because once we enter the summer, Blake, it's so hard to see teams recover sometimes. We've seen teams like LA Tech, who struggled a lot this semester in comparison when they were really darn good previously. Same thing for UCF Knights, right? They were so good, one of the best teams in CVAL, and then this semester, both their rosters were like, okay, they're fine, the middle of the pack, Valorant teams, but they couldn't even get into the playoffs or really even into LCQ, it feels like, at all here for the SEL. We don't even think SEL is like the most crazy Valorant competition. We got great teams now, but they haven't always been. It's going to be tough going into the next semester.
It's crazy how volatile Valorant is, but let's shift into Rocket League. Still a little bit volatile. Yeah, especially this series we're going to highlight first. This was our first one on the mainstream last week, so if you watched it, you know what kind of volatile gameplay we got to see between George Mason and Florida Southern. Was peak entertainment. We are so good in the SEL at having long series like this that are peak entertainment, but kind of sloppy Rocket League at times. I mean, if you look at the score lines, tale of two different types of wins for these teams, where Florida Southern only won those low-scoring one-goal games, and George Mason also won one-goal games, but their winning numbers were 4-4 and 5 as opposed to a 2 and a 1 on the Florida Southern side. And this is a series that looked like it was under George Mason control. At the start, they came out and looked like the dominant team against Florida Southern, and then FSC just locked GMU down. It was really impressive how they were able to withstand so much Patriot pressure on their goal line. Really good sign, I think, of what they can do to potentially beat a Bruton Parker Academy team that they have to face now this week. But George Mason, games 4 and 5, clutched up, went back and forth with Florida Southern there. It was so much fun. If you didn't catch it and you've got some spare time, definitely watch the VOD. I highly recommend it. TJ and I had a lot of fun with that series. But George Mason came out on top. They advanced. They got the luxury of playing Cumberland in round 2 of uppers, which I don't think they were quite expecting to win. And they did get swept there as well. But still, look good against Florida Southern. That's a team that you need to be able to beat if you are going to make a run in the postseason. But other matches to highlight real fast. Actually, the two other matches both feature Florida because they made a run to top 6 guaranteed in our playoff bracket. They started off with their series against Kennesaw State. This was a tight one. I think I definitely had Florida as fairly heavy favorites. This Kennesaw State team has been a little up and down recently with their performances, but they put together a good series. And it was off stream, so I didn't get to see it and the specifics of it. But taking Florida to game 5, really impressive because Florida is a team I've been super high on lately. Kennesaw State's a team that I'm kind of trending downwards on at the moment. But look really good there. They were able to lock in, take the Gators to 5, and then that proved to be a pretty great result because Florida went on then to beat Bruton Parker Academy, a team that they had played in groups, and BPC Academy beat them in 4 games on mainstream, and the one that Florida got was a game 3 after the series was pretty much already done. So shout out to Florida for coming back and avenging their previous losses. They're in really good form right now, and they're bringing some of that SEC esports spice to the SEL right now, Scott.
Yeah, I mean, I was distracted first series, the one that we were kind of joking before broadcast. We had 2 SEL specials, one that was like classic Oklahoma SEL special, the other one just really fun to watch Rocket League, right? It's just a good week. I was distracted on Wednesday because we're doing a side stream for Valorant to get one of the playoff matches. Right. I was trying to intro it. I'm looking over, like, constantly, like, watching the Rocket League game. Send a message like, wow, what's happening right now? I felt bad for my co-caster trying to follow alongside it, but it was worth it. It was a really good week overall for every match, which it should honestly, hopefully get better throughout the remainder of this because we're deep in the throes now of playoffs, stepping into quarters. This is for Valorant where we start to see teams that they literally have to make it to semis to get a tiebreaker or have to make it to finals to clinch, right? Like, and there's only 2 slots in finals and there's 4 teams vying for that. And I'm sure it's a lot of the same here for Rocket League. Everyone's just really wanting to punch in the gut, rev their engines and try to make their way here to Huntsville to get the LAN underway in May.
It's a great problem to have, the fact that we're running extra matches on broadcast. We've also got these super entertaining series, whether it be Valorant or Rocket League, going on at the same exact time. Because I was in the same boat as well. I was keeping an eye on that UAH UGAB series as well while Rocket League was going on. So great problems to have, but we got some accolades to hand out. I think it's time we get to our players and teams of the week.
Yeah, we'll start with Valorant first for this one. And I think the big one to shout out is that this week, like I mentioned, it was very few chances for important players like your fraggers, your duelists to show out, drop 46 kills. Even when they did, like Ariel did on the final map, like 32, I think was their tally, and Lander still didn't come away with the win. I can't put a lot of value on kills this week. It really did feel like it was team efforts, and that's likely to be the continuing story throughout the remainder of the season. So I'm giving it to Landingus from USC. They were not the most impressive player on their team, and neither for the either team, right? They had 4 kills in map 1. They were not looking hot, but they went overall 29 and 28 with 20 assists. 29, 28, and 20 with an extra 15 plants on top. They were all across assisting, playing great utility. It felt like either of these two teams are going to make it. Landingus was able to elevate them a little. Look, 15 bomb plants in comparison. Wow. Literally had more than everyone added together on the other team, and then obviously like 3 times what the rest of his team was piecing together. Just so effective. And when you're able to get that many plants, it means you're staying alive where you need to, where your team needs to find instantaneous value. So Landingus is very well deserved for Player of the Week this week. And then you turn it over to Team of the Week, and it's got to go to GMU. They had a side stream on their own broadcast for it. We meant to have it recorded. Things went awry. It's not a big deal. So we didn't get to have it here on the SEL in any capacity, but you can go watch it on their eSport channel to kind of get the VOD for that. It was really good. They thrashed a team that took a potential tier 1 spot from them because GMU wanted to be in tier 1. And a lot of people felt like maybe the UTC didn't feel like they deserved the option that they had going there. Max Vince, every single time I see this player, blows me away with their performance, whether that be individually or working together with a team to correctly time utility usage. They are just so effective as an individual. And you combo that with Jambo, who isn't always the best player for GMU, right? They're good, but sometimes they can be a little lackluster. They just feel like one of the pieces in their chessboard that sometimes you sacrifice, sometimes they're a way to take another piece. But it really felt like they were changing things up. They were a castle, right? They were rook. I mean, they were changing up everything they were doing. And it wasn't just a pawn lying in the front of your lineup. They were really, really effective overall. You only get 12 attacking rounds, and they had 11 total plants in those 12. That just shows you how dominant they felt on their offense for this map of Lotus. And Jambo had 8 of those plants, meaning they managed to survive in 8 out of the 12 rounds to be the person holding that spike and getting it down. That is an unreal, effective offensive performance from GMU, and very well deserved to secure them Team of the Week. In map 2, it's not that crazy for them. It was a lot closer, obviously. But overall, they were able to secure it, especially with how good map 1 was. And map 2 was just a consistent, normal effort from them overall. I didn't see anything too crazy. I was watching the VOD back that kind of separated them. That looked like UTC should have been playing the way they should have in map 1. But this was the best of the 2 teams facing off, and GMU just was the better team and overall for it.
All right. So this past week was kind of the story of the utility players then. Across Valorant, you've hammered that point home. But I mean, in Rocket League as well, and this feeds into my team of the week, which I'm awarding to James Madison for their 2-0 performance in playoffs so far, because they had a substitute player step in. So ability is typically their third player alongside Gad and Pigeon. But Tyler stepped in and will be stepping in for the remainder of their run in playoffs because ability is unavailable the weekend of LAN. So they're getting Tyler reps in, and he slotted in like he's been starting this entire season. I think scored the most goals in their series on stream where they 3-0 swept UT Dallas, another group stage revenge match for the Dukes where they lost in 5 to UTD, missing out on the top 4 winner's circle group because of that loss in week 4. So they got that revenge. Tyler scored the most goals in the lobby and looked like he had been starting this entire season. So shout out to Tyler. Not my player of the week, but James Madison, definitely my team of the week. Because Pigeon and Gad were their usual phenomenal selves, but Tyler stepped in big time. They went 2-0, secured top 6, and have effectively clinched LAN, not mathematically clinched just yet. I didn't crunch all the numbers because after Wednesday, we're pretty much going to know if they clinched or not. So I was like, we'll figure it out on Wednesday. But James Madison, congrats. You are my team of the week for the revenge that they got over UTD and for securing top 6. And then my player of the week is kind of outside the box, as he's already been eliminated from the SEL. Actually, is done with his SEL career, but is more than likely an SEL Hall of Famer at some point in the future. Big Wade himself won his first collegiate LAN this past weekend at the ECAC Spring Showdown, which we'll talk more about in our SEL on LAN segment. But Wade, K-Frost, and Turbo won the ECAC Spring Showdown, had a great playoff stage, and Wade was awarded the MVP of the tournament as well. So shout out to Big Wade. He was real happy about it, and I know his SEL career is over, but the dude is still doing big things, even outside of the league. So shout out to Wade for getting his MVP medal, his first LAN win, and kind of closing out his senior season with a bang. But some pretty good accolades, I think, for the utility players of the SEL this week, Scott.
Yeah, I love to see that it doesn't really change across esports. You can have great players that elevate you to get to high places, but to truly survive at the highest peaks, it takes more to lift you up to get to the extra edge. And Big Wade, my goodness, that actually makes me so sad. It's one of those names that you've seen for so long, consistently, and then when they disappear, like, no, please tell me it didn't happen. Esports collegiate death, aka I graduated and are on to better things likely in my life. It's just the saddest thing. I really don't look forward to May when we finally say goodbye to everybody in the SEL, and unfortunately may not say hello to them once again the next semester rising around.
I know that's the worst part about the SEL.
It's the worst part of working collegiate.
You're working collegiate as well, just the turnover of players. But I hope they stick around. I mean, we have a lot of SEL legends that are still active. I know, I'm pretty sure B-More actually submitted predictions, or at least talked about submitting predictions for the playoffs, which I did review our Rocket League playoff predictions that were submitted in our RL content channel. There are 3 flawless brackets so far. I'm one of them. Just saying. Joe Bro and Kung are the other 2. So shout out to the UTK legends for getting their playoff predictions correct so far. But let's dive into what happened in the Rocket League playoffs, because it was a little chaotic. I think for the most part, things went to plan outside of Florida's run. But let's show the bracket here so you can get a full taste of what was going on, especially for you, Scott, since you were casting Valorant while all the chaos was unfurling. But yeah. Cumberland is still as good as we thought they were. They 3-0'd a George Mason team that was just coming off the high of winning on Champions Field, and they secured top 6, I think, to the surprise of nobody.
Wow, I wonder if I'm going to hear that again at all.
Yeah, kind of a consistent story this semester. So we're still waiting to see if anyone can take them down, but I think we are now in the territory of teams that can take them down. James Madison is capable. I think so is Bruton Parker, so is Florida. And I seriously doubt anybody else will get the chance to for a little while in the Rocket League playoff bracket. But our top 4 at uppers: Cumberland, my team of the week in James Madison, Bruton Parker, who took care of business against South Carolina, and then Florida, who we've already talked about and complimented last week's team of the week as well. I'm not saying that our accolades encourage teams to play better, but Florida did go 2-0 after
reinforcement.
Hey, there's something to be said about that. So a reason to play hard and do well on LAN, get noticed by the state of the SEL guys, but. Outside of that, nothing too crazy. South Carolina 3-0 sweeping UT Arlington might be a little bit crazy because UTA, I think, can take games, can win that series as well. But South Carolina took care of business right there. And that happened last week during State of the SEL. We tried to tune in for a little bit, but it didn't really work out. I think it was one overtime game. Either way, South Carolina really did well to move on. And they get Auburn. So a little more SEC action right there, and there with South Carolina hungry to make LAN. I'm not sure I like Auburn's chances here, Scott, much to our chagrin.
Especially after this last weekend, huh? Not a good time. Not a good time overall for us right now, huh, Blake?
Right. Florida goes 2-0. Auburn loses their SEL playoff match. I see what you mean. So we'll
Unfortunate.
see if Auburn can recover there in playoffs. I said it last week. I do think they are the weakest team in this playoff bracket, but South Carolina is beatable. I just don't know if that will end up happening. But Bruton Parker Academy and Florida Southern will be an extremely interesting one because these are two teams whose defenses I'm extremely impressed with, and I actually don't remember. I don't remember who we have on stream. Someone's going to have to remind me real fast. But Florida Southern and Bruton Parker Academy will be a very exciting match if we don't have it on stream, which I'm going to check as soon as I stop talking. So I'll remind everyone if we do have it on stream or not. But okay, sorry. Florida and Bruton Parker is going to be first. So I had it in my head that we had Bruton Parker on stream, just the A team, not the Academy team. If they win, I think we will have them on stream. But they got to get through a Florida Southern college roster who looked really impressive against George Mason. So I think of all the unstreamed matches, that one might be the best of the slate, and that's including the fact that after State of the SEL, actually I haven't mentioned this yet, UT Dallas and UT Arlington will be streamed on the main channel. That's in 35 minutes. We have a special presentation of UTD versus UTA. Last time I watched this one, went all 5 games on my stream. This was about a year ago, but still, it's stuck in my head as a great series. Some DFW rivalry on the SEL main channel coming up after this. Scott, you're not casting Valorant after this, are you?
No, I am not.
All right, well then you can tune in. You don't have to watch both monitors.
I can actually watch things now. I can actually pay attention. I was about to say we're gonna have to start getting a second vMix package to like function simultaneously with how many broadcasts we're trying to do now on the main stream for both Rocket League and Valorant simultaneously. Yeah, I think this is the way SEL should be. As many as we can to highlight as many teams and players as we can.
So that will be, I think, the first side Rocket League stream that we've had on the main channel for the first time. So that's hype. I'm excited about that. TJ will be on the call with me for that one. He will be around, and then George Mason, Kennesaw State, the other matchup. That one's also going to be a banger. Dylan usually streams his perspective, so with that one not being on the main channel, make sure you're following Dylan. Follow all the players in SEL. They usually put on good streams for unstreamed matches. That one will be a good one. But that's Rocket League for you. It's getting really interesting. After this week, we're going to have a really good picture as to who is going to LAN and who needs to go on a run to make LAN. That's really exciting.
Did y'all not have to do giant paperwork and math numbers and everything else to figure things out? Because that's what Valorant's turned into, and I'm almost jealous of how easy it feels like Rocket League has been to determine that, because this is a nightmare on the other side.
Like I said, I could have crunched the numbers to see if JMU secures it, but I was like, we'll have a better picture after Wednesday, so I just shoved it off.
It's the esport way to be slightly lazy and leave it down the line to be handled off elsewhere. If you're a player, don't do that. Start practicing and scrimming, because playoffs is not going to be easy, but we get some level to get away with it in the production side.
It is what it is. That's why we're casters. We got pretty faces, so we can get away with stuff like that.
Sure, that's what we can. That's what lets us get away with it. Not me holding off all the number crunching to Shaka behind the scenes for the Valorant side.
All right. What's happening in Valorant, Scott? I think it's time we get to that.
All right, let's jump on over to it. Now, Valorant isn't the craziest thing in the whole wide world right now. We'll first take a look at what we have, or talk a little bit about what we have confirmed for the lane teams. And we touched on this on both Thursday and Friday. UGA Black, GMU, and UNCC have guaranteed confirmed they will go through to LAN. They are clinched 100%. The big question is going to be obviously Oklahoma, Cumberland's A and B roster, JMU, Texas State, Niner. They got eliminated. Niner Esports are unfortunately out with that loss they faced to Cumberland Destiny. So that was where it was a big match. We're saying Cumberland don't have any points. Niner had a little bit, and they wanted more. And they were kind of feeding for it, and it just was a really good game for Cumberland Destiny, and I'll talk a little bit more about that when we break down that match in a second. But Oklahoma is praying that GMU does not get knocked out here next in their matchup, even though they've clinched, and same thing with UNCC, and the same thing with UGA Black. They need them to take it seriously, and they need 2 out of those 3 teams to make it through to semifinals, and then Oklahoma will get the clinch. They'll make it through, and they'll get they'll guarantee land no matter what. Otherwise, right now, they've already clinched a tiebreaker, and we don't know how we're going to break down the tiebreaker just yet. The plan I think we really wanted to do was actually have all the teams face each other and do their own little mini bracket to see who would make it. I think that's the fairest way overall, and it's also the most entertaining way overall. But we'll obviously come out with a little bit more news about that down the line. We're also pushing off that for as long as we can till we see the whole picture.
Tiebreakers in the SEL.
It's tough. Tiebreakers right now look really tough, especially considering that this Oklahoma team, who is pretty good this semester, but have been historically really good, and maybe aren't as comparable, but are still really up there with where they have been against teams that have stepped in and are some of the best you could possibly ask for. Oklahoma only getting to this stage and having the chance because of last semester's performance when there weren't nearly as many insanely solid teams as there are now. But that's what our playoff for lands are kind of looking like for implications. We'll cut over to our actual playoff side of things and kind of break down how the matches went down this past week. Now, obviously, the one we did not have on broadcast was the GMU UTC one, but that was on their broadcast. I touched on that a little bit. It was a really great game for GMU. Map 1 was completely theirs for the taking, and Map 2 is about what you'd expect for a normal standard of the map. It wasn't anything too crazy, so I didn't touch too much on it. The UAH one and UGA Red one, both teams had the tacit understanding you're going to lose next week, right? Like, it's just how the story's going to unfold. Your ending is now, it's just trying to get through the victory of this one. I really need to check up to see if UGA have managed to take that unexpected win in their NECC division to see if they'll have to rematch UAH in the finals, but I guess I could check up on that another point in time and see how that breaks down. And then Charlotte Esports had that game, that instant SEO classic for map 1 and 2 against Oklahoma. Who else but Oklahoma to do it? And Charlotte Esports, with that win as well, were able to just confirm themselves straight through to LAN and secure it. But they've got to now face an extremely tough JMU. So there's a lot of prep in their future for the next 2 days to try to get that unlocked before they go through. And then Destiny, this was the game that we did on Friday night that we were a little bit worried about. I had to go watch the Minecraft movie with my father.
That's why you had to leave?
That's why I had to leave. So I was really stressed about getting it done in time, even though it started 2 hours earlier. But Cumberland Destiny obviously heard my fears and everything else in between and goes, "Don't worry about this, Scott." Super good fraggers. They're all over the place. They feel like they're super consistent as a team. But man, watching Cumberland Destiny, which used to be their main team, right, just absolutely dissolve every front that Nine Resource main team brought to the table. Coordinated strats, lineups on Ascent, turnarounds through Haven, all of them fell apart because Cumberland Destiny just felt like they had a vice grip on every scenario that was even thought of for Niner Esports main team and just completely choked it to the point of not breathing anymore. And Niner Esports main team, with the loss of oxygen, unfortunately fell limp, and the score lines were very much so in Cumberland Destiny's favor. And Ascent was a tough one to watch for a good part of it. Niner Esports main team had so many things they were doing for lineups to hit B, pushes out through A, all of it working, and the next thing you know, not a single person died, not a single person lost the line of sight, and then you're immediately eviscerated, stepping and extending out through side. It was just a ridiculous map for Cumberland Destiny. And I mentioned it, I think Cumberland Destiny, if they play 90% as good as they did in that series against Niner Esports main team, they will beat UGA Black this week, which is a big matchup because UGA Black knows they cinched. They've joked they're not going to be, they're going to like pug stack it a little bit, but they've also joked that they are just a pug stack and don't scrim and don't practice, and they're lying to everybody here on the SEL, right? But we'll have to see if that ultimately comes true. I think Cumberland Destiny will absolutely be capable of taking the UGA Black roster down a peg because their main team's done it, and that's plenty of information that can be gleaned over. They'll gladly talk to you and break things down. And we'll touch a little bit now on the actual games coming up this week. We're going to have TSU, Texas State University, against GMU for the mainstream on Thursday. That is a big matchup overall, consistency-wise, for Texas State, because if they win that, they move on to have to face Cumberland, which will be a tough battle for them, and one that has not been super good for any team, let alone for them. We can cut back here to the playoff side of things here, Shaka, so we can take a look at the bigger picture. Texas State, obviously, they win. They got to go face Cumberland Phoenix. They're going to deal with UGA Red. Doesn't feel like with any problem. JMU, I think they won't have too many issues dealing with Charlotte. Charlotte are really good, but JMU knows that their LAN implications are on the line because they weren't here previously, so they have to be good in this matchup and make it to semis. So they're going to play lights out like they do. Darby's going to come online and secure themselves as solid of a front as they could possibly ask for. UGA Red guaranteed lost that. They lost their playoff game at the for NECC. That stinks. So no fourth rematch for UAH versus UGA Red this semester. Unfortunate. And then UGA Black versus Cumberland Destiny. This is the other one. The only two that we were really looking at, for most part, like, yeah, the JMU and Charlotte game would be entertaining, was going to be UGA Black and Cumberland versus Texas State and GMU. And we just haven't seen enough of Texas State. We know they lose to JMU. They did in CVAL. We know they lose here. We know that JMU was supposed to be in tier one, very well should have been in tier one, likely. There was a grudge match, it felt like, against UTC for round one for a team that did get in tier one because they got really good luck, maybe use a skill for a lot of accounts for our very limited play-ins. And JMU got very unlucky having to deal with tough teams. So it felt like the map one was really them just kind of geeking out their feelings about that. But JMU deserved to be in tier one. They're good enough to be up there. They're capable of even taking out JMU, in my opinion. And we won't know if that'll even be an option until the finals, if that even happens, if somehow JMU can survive Texas State and also somehow get through Cumberland Phoenix right afterwards. But the possibility here, Blake, of a Cumberland on Cumberland finals is very much so in front of us. Because like I said, I think they could beat Georgia Black. And I do think they have a chance against JMU, though I think JMU's beaten them before. It's just going to be a very interesting remainder of our playoff. And what else but Cumberland for both sides of our esports here in the SEL to really throw things, a wrench in everything. As we'll jump over to our Rising Stars, because we had some very interesting ones. It's mostly lopsided victories. Like I said, it just kind of felt like you had last week's games, which were all 2-0s, and then the B team for JMU, and JMU cannot outclass them in any capacity. It feels like USC had the toughest matches, the reason I gave them as well for the overall team of the week or overall player of the week, because the consistency came them through for map 3. And that leads us into our matchups for an unknown kind of question of UKY White, who had a forfeit, obviously, against UAHB in round 1 of our Rising Stars. Took down their secondary team, I think, in the second round, and then shockingly took down UTK Orange, who I felt like were on an absolute tear, being the lower seed against Liberty and beating them 2-0 in a really good fashion. Raging Canyon Esports, I think they were pretty good. I didn't think they were anything to scoff at, and they had no problem with them, but they got trounced by Kentucky White, and it felt like maybe they have a really good shot here against JMUB. So USC and JMU are the two teams I'm really looking at to make the statement piece. JMUB obviously the higher seeded team, but I think USC has a very good shot to deal with them. But I do think it will require all 3 maps. And this is going to be the finest picture we could possibly ever ask for, as I really want to know more about Kentucky. I wish I could get them on broadcast this week.
I love that we've added to the already storied history of Kentucky versus Tennessee within the SEL, but now in Valorant, after all that's kind of like washed over the Tennessee versus Kentucky stuff, like season 3, season 4 stuff, we get another matchup and Kentucky get the victory here. And that is an interesting one. And I love that we've got still club teams making deep runs. I think UGA, I don't know if Texas State is a club team or varsity or how they're supported at Texas State. But Georgia definitely is a notable club team still in the top playoffs. And then here we've got South Carolina and Kentucky still fighting on deep in brackets. It's cool to see the club team still showing up.
Yeah, I think for a lot of players, they don't want to just be kind of thought as just a club team, and then that could be any way to differentiate them. And so it's kind of like making a statement, especially if they're, if it's only like their first year in college or the second year of college, like the possibility of being scouted to other programs is pretty high for Valorant. It is pretty, look at Cumberland. They flew in 5 talent, right? Or 4 technically, I think, for Phoenix, but like they scout like crazy, right? These are what really good teams do and programs do. With full support, they will gladly look elsewhere. And so I think for a lot of it, it's people proving themselves. And collegiate is a great way to do it for the first few years. And then if you're not able to make the move and go to another side, then make the most of what you have. Don't take any second guesses. Don't lag back on your dreams or anything. Don't rest on your laurels and just go absolutely crazy to make your statement piece here. And I think for the Rising Stars, that's my favorite thing about the Rising Stars. So thankful we did a Rising Star playoffs for this semester, because there are teams that I would have hated to see them bow out after just like 4 weeks of generic play for it not to mean anything. These are teams that definitely deserve as much of a limelight as they can get.
Who's your favorite to win Rising Star?
Well, with the way that GMUB has been playing, which we didn't have a lot of information on them prior, right, because of the forfeit against UGA White, it will likely be GMU. But I know how good JMUB is as well, and I know the staff is pretty involved with them. But it's because I don't know anything about Kentucky, I can't give a straight answer. If USC was on the bottom, I think USC could deal with either JMU or Kentucky. I don't know if they'll be able to get through GMU with the way that they've been playing, though. So my guess is it'll come down to GMU being the ultimate victor, but time will tell. Show me wrong, USC, please, because y'all's game against ETSU and your previous matchups throughout the pools, our pool stage, were so impressive for you guys just to have you get dropped into the Rising Stars.
All right, right on. And I realized talking all about this Rising Star Valorant playoffs that we didn't mention it during Rocket League. So I'm gonna go back and talk about that for RL. I only forgot about you temporarily, Rising Star Rocket League. I really do apologize because things got serious last week. If we could show the upper bracket, it really kind of popped off. UGA 3-0'd Lander Academy. So shout out again to a UGA team in the SEL for doing things well. They came up just short in their group. It's a tough group, but they weren't able to make it out of there. I know they knew they could have put up a fight in the last chance qualifier, but they are more than making up for that in the Rising Star playoffs. Is that they've gone on a tear, faced UCF Academy, who same boat, just narrowly missed out on the LCQ, but have really put up great wins in Rising Star playoffs. They put an end to the run of UTK Blue in Rising Star, who pulled some upsets to get to those upper bracket semifinals, but couldn't hold the candle to UCF Academy, unfortunately, who are now awaiting and waiting a couple of weeks for their matchup in the grand finals of the Rising Star playoffs. And we'll show the lower bracket as well, so you can see what teams are left standing in Rising Star playoffs. Some notable ones from groups with South Carolina Garnet, South Carolina B, down there, Arkansas Little Rock down there, UTK White, previously good team. Tennessee's a deep program as well. They could play UTK Blue as well down the stretch if they do get through UTA Orange. But there are good teams. UTA JV's even there at the bottom, kind of hiding from me, as they have good results in groups. Just couldn't quite make it to the last chance qualifier, and now they're showing their stuff in Rising Star. So it all leads to UGA, the big boss of the lower bracket, waiting to play here in a couple of weeks for a spot in the grand final. So it's all shaping up. Rising Star playoffs, we're getting to the entertaining part of it, where the forfeits seem to be over, and teams that want to take this bracket seriously are taking it seriously and going on a deep run here. So I'm glad to see that.
Is it also for Rocket League here, Blake? A lot of the teams that like have known they've clinched, like UJ Black jokes, they're going to pug stack the remainder of playoffs. They don't care actually about the semester win. They just want the land. That's all they care about. Is it that same way for Rocket League for the playoff side of things? So they just care that they've cinched the land and are going to it, or?
Definitely not. With the CECC spot on the line, like
that's
know,
my thought too. Is like there's still more implications here.
Like, they could be going to CECC. I'm pretty sure there's a travel stipend for CECC. So if you make it there, it's not like if you're a club team, you'll be able to go. So I mean, for UGA, if they're just phoning it in against Cumberland, it's a little disappointing.
I think if they phone it in, they're definitely losing.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, for Rocket League, there's a chance. I've heard that Cumberland's playing in a different conference that might have a bid to the SEL, and I should have researched this myself. But if they get it elsewhere, that's a wide open spot. Bruton Parker are definitely favorites, I think, to come in second in SEL spring. But Florida, James Madison, there are teams that can beat them right now and maybe nab a CECC spot if it falls down the ladder. But I do need to confirm that about Cumberland playing in a different conference, trying to get that spot. So that'll be a story for a different week. But yeah, I mean, that's something to still look forward to.
Now I think you have a broadcast coming up fairly quick after this one here, Blake. So we'll jump on over. We're done with Rocket League, done with Valorant. We've cleared it. It's now what's on the docket for the SEL as a whole, and this is a big one that we've been working on for quite a while. That I know you had a meeting for yesterday with Fred. So take it away. This one I'm really excited to hear about.
Yeah, so official. The day before our Rocket League and Valorant LAN next month is going to be a high school Rocket League event, which Gaming Oasis has put on before, but this is like an official kind of SEL preview of the high school offering that we're expanding into for next fall and beyond. And so if you have high school contacts, let them know there is a chance to play on LAN. You have to qualify. It'll be 8 to 12 teams that do end up playing. I think we settled on 12. So a decent number. And it's in Huntsville, accessible from Tennessee, Georgia, Mississippi, obviously Alabama. So look, if you know a team, or if you can pass along the information to someone that might, make sure they know about the SEL High School Showcase LAN. There's not an official name for it yet. I'm just throwing it out there because I like the word showcase for high school students, because these are future SEL players that may have a chance to get some reps, get some LAN reps and experience what the SEL is like on LAN. It's a lot of fun, I assure you. Been to a couple now, and so make sure that that if you know someone at the high school level, they know about this LAN. It's the day before. It's a Friday. And pull up the exact date right now. I'll just open my calendar real fast. So we know it'll be May 16th will be the dates. So if we have enough teams interested, there will be a qualifier for it a couple of weeks before. So make sure in your SEL Discord, make sure you're checking announcements and know about that. But hey, SEL High School Rocket League on LAN.
Yeah, I think what qualifiers start May 2nd, I think is what was confirmed for it. So
yeah.
Pretty, like, you got a little bit of time to get plenty of reach out to as many teams, and seeing us be able to provide that earlier than we kind of thought we would. We were kind of teasing the idea of having the high school side of things at LAN. And I know Valorant not being able to make it was kind of a sad thing, but at the same time, it's so long to play Valorant games. Look at the finals for the last LAN in May, right? So we'd like to get things out there, make sure it's all sorted first, and I'm super excited to see everyone come in, bushy-eyed and bushy-tailed, just being super excited to play at a LAN, which is something not a lot of high schoolers have the option to do, right? And be able to kind of prove themselves, and maybe even get scouted by a lot of the programs that will be there the next day and the day after, right? And kind of looking to see what they want to do for their future.
And speaking of SEL on LAN, perfect segue into one of our final segments of the shows. We do have UT Dallas and UT Arlington coming up at the top of the hour. Special presentation there. But this one literally just applies to King. It's the one I referenced earlier when giving my Player of the Week accolade to Big Wig. So they won the ECAC Spring Showdown. And this was, I forget the exact location of it. And the bracket doesn't tell you much about the results here. It just says ones. I assume they weren't playing best of ones. But King made a run. They beat Stockton, Wichita State JV, which is one of the better JV teams in CRL, and lost to RIT, and then beat Nichols, and then beat RIT. I think the grand finals was a best of 9. I saw that on Pyro J's tweet, who was casting it. So the elusive best of 9 format in Rocket League grand finals is back. I've called 2 best of 9s in my time, and they can be really boring if it doesn't go to 7, 8, or 9 games, or really exciting if it does go to 8 or 9 games. So shout out to King for getting that series, that LAN win. Of course, getting Big Wade his first LAN win in a while, so or ever, I think. So congrats to King. Turbo and K Frost, great players. I love watching them play, and I'm excited to see what the future of King does hold. So shout out to King for repping the SEL well on LAN.
I like to see success. Like we're waiting to see success stories coming out for Cumberland on the side of things for CVAL. We still got to see what their grand final comes into and the bid they'll get for possibility for LAN for CVAL as a whole. Though I think only the grand final teams actually end up making it, a lot like last year. We hope the South can be just as represented when it comes to the Valorant side of things. So they don't get as many LANs, all things that count, as Rocket League does at the end of it.
All right. Well, that does bring us to the end of our show. Do we have anything else to touch on as we close out and get prepared for UTA and UTD, Scott?
Make sure to check in next week for more State of the SEL. Blake is really trying to hammer that point home.
Yeah, I was really marketing it during that Charlotte and Oklahoma series, pinning messages and spamming chat about it. So yeah, next Tuesday, same time, same place, State of the SEL. You're getting the hang of it at this point. We've got Rocket League tomorrow at 7 Central, 8 Central, playoff Rocket League, playoff Valorant the next day. Same schedule as per the norm. So make sure you do follow Esports SEL and all the T's of social media, Twitch, Twitter, and TikTok to support the league, support our sponsors, Red Bull, MSI. It's things are happening at the Southeastern Esports League. So thank you all for tuning in to State of the SEL. Make sure you stick around for our special presentation of UT Arlington and UT Dallas playing a playoff Rocket League match. Shout out to Mr. Infernosis on the other side of the booth here for joining me as always. Shout out to Shaka in the background producing this show and our next series. I'm Mr. Bepic, and I'll see you in 12 minutes. And welcome back to our special presentation of UT Dallas and UT Arlington facing off in Rocket League following State of the SEL. I've brought in TJ for this one. Shout out to you, TJ, for doing double duty with your casting gigs tonight and hopping on for some UTD UTA action.
Hey, you know what? My Tuesdays are a little more relaxed. I get to go cast F124 in my spare time over on the Stay Plugged In network. So a lot of educational gigs have been in my future as of late. So I don't mind hopping on the SEL another time. And we get tomorrow night, too. So why would I not take the chance? And also for the Battle of Texas in the losers round of playoffs, for all things.
Yeah, and this one in the past has been a good matchup. I distinctly remember one summer series matchup last year between these two. I think it was the one win that UTD got that summer series, and it went to Game 5. It was electric between these two on my stream. I was super glad I got to do it, but in groups, UT Dallas kind of got their revenge in the SEL this season.
Yeah, this season, the tail of the tape has been decently one-sided. UTA has had a very up-and-down semester. They haven't had a major performance since 2024 summer, like you mentioned, and they've been extremely up and down within their own state. Now, granted, Texas has a lot of Rocket League talent, but even in the CECC Texas quals, too, they had their moments. And I don't remember who got the spot out of those quals. I thought it was LCU or UTD. But either way, UTA was not even in contention for that argument. So they've got a lot to prove, and what a better chance to do it than as the 10 seed here in the losers round of playoffs and to upset a UTD team that's also been fairly inconsistent.
Making sure we're all good to go here to get this one underway because it's a big one. I mean, the loser of this is officially eliminated from LAN contention with both these teams joining for the spring split, not playing in the fall. They'll be stuck at 12 points just for making playoffs, kind of a participation trophy for making top 12 in the SEL, which is becoming harder and harder to do. And both these teams did it, but they need runs to top 4 to secure LAN, and that's a ways off right now.
The biggest thing, too, is the specific SEL history of both these teams. They fittingly ended up in the same Tier 1 group and somehow found a way to find each other in the losers bracket. It was a 3-1 result for UTD before, and as we hop into Game 1, I don't know if we're going to see the same here, Bepic.
And we're waiting to see Blippi as well. I do not see him on the field. Is this a 2v3 or my game client going crazy?
I don't see him either, so I'm also very confused. It looks like that now Blippi's in, so I do believe by law they can call for a restart. Bevy, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I do believe we can restart Game 1, and it looks like that's exactly what's going to happen.
All right. Well, that also gives us a chance to put it on central servers as well. For Shaka in the background. Also, shout out to Shaka for doing double duty for State of the SEL and this bonus series. I don't know why Zora said UTD was ready when Blippi was not in the lobby. So UTD's already a little off kilter, and I mean they're 0-1. They kind of got dismantled by James Madison in playoffs last week. TJ, we watched that one on the mainstream, and that was a rough one for the Comets.
It's, again, we've seen it on LAN with this roster as well. They have been the most confusing roster in this playoffs. I mean, if ETSU was in here, I think they'd fit that role, but this is easily the next best pick. They have found their way into an incredible UTD roster. They have a waste managing the team as well. I mean, top to bottom, I truly believe this is one of the best combos of staff and players that you can have, but they continue to struggle when it matters the most. I did actually go pull the results from the Texas qualifiers, and LCU did beat them for that spot. So not really an upset, but at the same time, they have yet to find a major result, and you just mentioned it, they did get dismantled. That's a pretty nice word considering how things went, but they're looking to get back on their feet here against a team that they've been able to at least dominate this semester.
And it's kind of wild as well for UTD. They lose the first 2 games of groups. And they go on a 5-match winning streak, go to the upper part of the winner's circle, and then lose 3 straight there. And now they've made it a 4th straight in playoffs. So they are a team of streaks this season. 2 losses consecutively, then 5 wins, and now 4 losses. And if they suffer their 5th one here tonight against their in-state rivals. UTD will have finished their season with 5 consecutive losses in the SEL. So for their sake, I'm hoping it doesn't happen. But for UTA's sake, I'm hoping they're able to get a big win here. And Caribou has started us off 45 seconds in with a crazy pinch 50 in.
On that note, I do want to talk positively on UTA. This is a roster that you can't sleep on. I mean, truly, I believe that it is just an hours thing for this roster. You normally don't see them on the game for hours at a time. You don't see them grinding, and mistakes like that kickoff right there is the exact example I'm referring to, as Dalton whiffs on that one, pushes it far to try and find that back corner, and almost gets another pinch back to his net. But UTA do have the mechanics to compete. It's just a matter of, can they be hot for one night?
I've seen it before. They beat San Diego State on my stream. Love that series. Caribou was popping off, scoring some of the craziest clutch goals that I have ever seen put together across a series. And he did it again in Nightlight show matches. I mean, it was the full team there. Random Shy and Nava, one of the two had a big 0-second goal to close out the series. And this team, I mean, they can score clutch goals, but consistency is an issue for UTA and has been. Maybe it is an hours thing, TJ. It makes sense considering how good they can be, and this is a team that could make a run at top 6. And so far, so good. You know, you got a lead in game 1 against your in-state rivals, but you will need a lot more.
It's a beautiful sequel to both these teams' seasons, as now they both see each other once again. They've had their struggles, but also have a lot of positives, at least internally, to go off of. I mean, UTD finds a way to bring Blippi in, who's been a really bright, shining star, and in the meantime, Caribou really hasn't lost a step with his consistency and how much you can depend on him on this UTA side. But again, it's an even more beautiful blend of the chaos that could be here in a best of 5, where the lights are the brightest and where the pressure is the absolute brightest. I guess I'll just say that, as well, as it's an off day for me, so forgive me. But one thing at least we can guarantee, UTD winning on the offensive half so far, but these pinches keep on delaying their attack.
Well, let's dive back into the bright pressure and see if UTD can't get their opening goal, as it has been a half a game of Rocket League so far, and are still scoreless, despite now converting on the possession game at the very least. Field domination is increasingly moving in their general direction, but still no goal to show for it, and UTA have found their exit. Forced an awkward one out of Blippi. He stuffs the ball in the corner, and there's no one there to immediately follow up for UTA. They bide their time, play the next consecutive 50s, but nothing really outside of just corner play for the Mavericks. The short trip into offense for them, and they will stick at just their 1 goal for now.
UTD, though, has to be careful. They're getting a lot of offense, but Blippi's caught on his back foot here and also gives possession away to Caribou. Now, granted, his first touch was rough, so Random Shy and him both have a chance to make something happen, and somehow Caribou gets the reset into a 50 there. Double commit for UTD. Blippi is there with enough boost to make it happen, though, and it will be an even 50 to Zora, who goes on net, but both third men on both rosters struggling a little bit. But Dalton, though, somebody we have yet to talk about, somebody who is probably the most composed player on the pitch here, and I'm expecting to see much better shots other than that one going forward.
Definitely the most experienced when it comes to experience in CRL, but it's Blippi and Zora signing off on the opener for UTD. About 4 minutes in, not a moment too soon, but it's a simple corner play that had UTA spaced out that Zora was able to hit the mark on. So full ones across the board here, as UTD have equalized a bit late in game 1, but they finally make something out of all the pressure they were building up in that UT Arlington end.
UTA had a decently rough time over in the group stage, only picking up 1 series. In fact, I believe it was against the B team of Texas Dallas. So they partially have access and ownership of the state of Texas. But when everything's bigger, including this rivalry right here, I really am intrigued to see how do they decide to step up, especially when UTD have been to lands. They, yes, may have struggled, but still have been under that pressure and have had really nice shining star moments across every member of this roster, including a pre-jump here from Dalton. This is potentially one that could end the game. It looks like no, it's too easy for Random Shy, a longtime veteran of the West.
He was so ready for that. Had full boost on the backboard. And Dalton is flashy, getting up to that one. But It was read by the UTA defense, and that one as well. Read nicely by Random Shy, and then Caribou follows up with a big save. UTA, it feels like they need this next goal, because if UTD can continue to dominate the possession game going forward in this series, it'll be tough for UTA to win games, but it's UT Dallas on 0 seconds that finished the job, not a moment too soon. They keep the ball up and knock game 1 down.
And who better to tap it in than Blippi himself? Again, the newest addition and one of these star rookies of the SEL, and he gets what is probably his first overtime, at least 0-second winner, especially in these SEL playoffs. So you'll take it if you're UTD, because there was a rough start in there.
And now, looking at Arlington going forward, they spent, I think, the bulk of the last 3, maybe 3.5 minutes of that game in their half. So much time spent in the UTA end, and going forward, that is not sustainable. They had maybe 1 possession after UTD finally found their footing. They worked their way into game 1, started controlling the midfield line. UTA, that I can remember, really only had 1 solid possession in the Dallas end, and that is a problem going forward. So they have to find a way to dismantle that midline of Dallas.
It felt like that entire game was spent in the UTA half, and so I'll even throw a counterpoint into the analysis here. Yes, the midline is obviously the biggest problem, but UTA shows lack of comprehensive plays on defense as well. That double commit is a prime example, and they cannot get their own end together. How in the world can they even get to the midfield? Well, hopefully Forbidden Temple's got the answer.
All right, and for UTD, it's got to feel nice to win game 1 like that, on 0 seconds, after working so hard to wear down a sturdy UTA back line. Sturdy for the most part, because I agree, those double commits did end up costing them. The 0-second goal, definitely the most egregious, but they cost them possession throughout that game as well, and we're starting off in the Arlington end just right from the get-go. We do break out. And that was a chance here for Caribou to do something crazy, but Blippi dodges a demo and makes a save. Nicely done.
Much better start for UTA, but a little delayed on the offensive side, and maybe it's for the best as the fakes come out, and it'll take 2 comments out of the way. Nava does have a chance, but he's definitely the quietest player for this UTA side, at least after game 1. But their pressure is easily much better, but it seems very similar to the beginning of last game, is that UTD will start figuring it out, or maybe they won't, because Nava goes on the forehead of a Comet.
And it's exactly at the same time stamp as Caribou's goal in game 1 at 4:15. Arlington gets on the board again with a brilliant play. Nava found space on the backboard and nailed his shot, and that's what UTA needed to do with their offensive possessions if they were going to be held to as few as they were in game 1. Just 3 shots for UT Arlington in game 1, and already doing well to negate that narrative. It's Dallas's turn with a breakout play. They weren't able to keep it in that offensive zone, but nice pass out to the side will get them back on the front foot.
Dalton does get the reset to recover with and almost turns it into a demo, but for the time being, Nava does have plenty of time and space, but uses all of his boost just to make that midfield 50 happen. And for UTA, they are starting to find bumps as Dalton's almost going to get back to that ball, but they need to find more than that. You mentioned the midfield, and so far they've showed that they don't need to be on defense for the whole game, at least much better than game 1 went, but they still are looking for those final blows to the defense of UTD, which they did find a few, but haven't capitalized just yet. Now UTD gets their first good chance. Zora decides to keep it in play instead of forcing a shot. Caribou was able to get it over to Random Shy, and a lot of positives for UTA thus far.
No space in offense now. They're having to pry this ball away from the Comets of UT Dallas, and pry they will not be able to. The Blippi kind of gives that one away. Zora can salvage possession, but gets bumped off by Nava. It's really well done. We're seeing a better transition game from the Mavericks here, and now they can maybe have a 2-goal lead as Caribou sets up his offense in the corner of UTD, but the ball leaks out, and Blippi was up so early for that 50-50. UT Dallas is showing a very aggressive midfield line again, and turns into a shot that Caribou will find a block on.
This is a 3v1 for UTD. They weren't able to convert, and Blippi dribbles it right into many defenders. Now he goes for the bump on Caribou. Does force the jump. It's off the bar, though, and I don't think he was aware of that. Does not get the final tap in, and a freebie for UTD can't be tapped in, as Nava will try to find a teammate, but that's Caribou disintegrated off the pitch. But miscommunication from UTD. Zora will have to come in as third man to make this play at least get started, and it's too slow. A big dunk, an open net. Nava wasn't ready, though, so again, another opportunity. Missed big for Texas.
Now Arlington can try again. Caribou through the corner, couldn't just dish it in. I think Blippi was going for an in and out right there, as no one respected the fact that Caribou could just hit this.
I was making the pun that both Texas sides struggled on defense, but at least one side can get it figured out on offense, and that's off the hands of course, who better than Caribou? We talked about him many, many times, and he has scored, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong here, 2 goals in 2 games. It's a good start, but the defense of Random Shy has a crack in it, and Blippi will abuse it.
That's an easier one for UT Dallas off kickoff. It was just an opening here as Random Shy let that ball go a little bit at the midfield line, and Blippi just can turn and shoot. Puts it on target. And I know Oase always says that UTD is one of the best teams when they're hitting their shots. And in this series, game 1 was a little bit rocking, but seems like it's decent striking for the comments of UT Dallas at the moment. But they could use some more possession on Forbidden Temple.
Well, at least UTA has done the entire game right so far.
Yeah.
They've kept the lead, they fought back and forth, and they haven't shown insane issues other than, of course, the very first UTD goal. But also UTD struggling under almost no pressure, finding double commits in the midfield or on their back line like it's almost a hobby or a bad habit that they can't get rid of. And it's going to give UTA a lot of time like this, where Caribou was able to simply dribble it out. Dalton does get a nice 50. Random Shy's on his lonesome, but nobody's there to push him. That's a very heavy touch, though.
Oh, it has Nava, though, and actually just sticking close to the ball for Random Shy was enough to bait 2 UTD players in, but Dalton's getting fancy with it. Down the sideline, kept the ball in play for the Comets offense for a little bit longer. We have a midfield battle breaking out, which does favor UTA. Lead in hand if they can hold together their backline defense, which for the most part in game 1 they were able to, considering the amount of time they spent playing backline defense. Though with 40 seconds left, UTD is starting to steamroll that back line, and Blippi, I'm sure, was looking to shoot that ball, but Nava got in the way.
I mean, Blippi basically bumped out 2 open nets for UTD, but nobody was ready and nobody had the boost to go for it. So that chance falls to the wayside. Zora also almost owned goals here. It's going to be awkward for Blippi nonetheless as Caribou reset, heavy touch, Zora free touch, and now Random Shy's already up. The midfield has been a great point of contention for them, and they've got UTD's number. Blippi, though, could pass this middle or shoot. How about neither? Nava and both miss, and Blippi gets another heroic late freebie.
Well, we got to stop having repeats for UT Arlington, as they scored their first goal at 4:15 in both games, and then double committed with less than 10 seconds left to give up open nets for UT Dallas to get big-time goals. We're tied up after UTA almost had this game all sewn up, and they can try to get it back on 0 seconds, but Nava lets that ball fall, and we get overtime.
We were robbed of an overtime in game 1. UTA fans were robbed of a game 2 win, and they almost get it back immediately here. Still could win Nava's shot, but it's weak and misplaced. So UTA, I'm going to take an exact copy of what you were saying at the end of game 1. Now that UTD has the momentum and is slowly starting to find their rhythm once again, I think UTA needs to score quick here.
I think they do as well, and they're trying off kickoff. They have established possession, and they're trying to make plays happen, but it's not quite panning out, as Caribou does miss right there. Nava will try to keep the ball going, and that's a strong 50-50 out to the side. Caribou misses, and Random Shy can't get back. Zora converts on the opening, and UT Dallas steal away game 2.
An awful pinch into a awful ceiling bounce and a awful demo interaction for Random Shy. I have never seen, at least this spring, some series of plays that is that god-awful for a team. And for UTA, man, you would have wished you could have had those last 30 seconds back.
I mean, in both games, like UTA has been right there with games ripe for the taking. Now through games 1 and 2 in this series, and this is their season on the line right now. Like, we're not just, I know it's an off night. We don't have the same kind of electric SEL feel with a Tuesday night stream, but I mean, this is the end of one of these two teams' seasons, and UT Arlington have had 2 winnable games put in front of them, and last-second mistakes have cost them, both in Game 1 and Game 2. They have got to recover and got to find a way back now.
End of both their seasons, you mentioned, but also it is just the start of a potential land-defining run for the winner of this game. And there is still a lot that needs to be fixed in order to survive one of the toughest losers bracket. In fact, maybe even the toughest losers bracket in SEL history, with both these newcomers included in that. So for UTA, you know you're right there, but as we enter Driftwoods, can you just stitch it up for one last minute? UTA have shown that they can survive for an entire game, but man, those last 30 seconds just don't seem to click, and UTD have taken advantage of it and will continue to do so.
Would be quite the launch pad for both teams. I think for UTD, if they're able to sweep here, to go on a run to a potential top 6, top 4, and for UTA to reverse sweep to make a run to a potential top 6, top 4. But it has to happen on Driftwoods for both these teams, for Arlington to start it and Dallas to close. And so far, the Comets have had more ice in the veins in this series, and they've been composed. If they can survive the 4:15 mark in this game without Dalton taking the ball away from his teammates, then UTD, I think, will be all right. But we're looking like we're edging towards a UT Arlington opener here with the mistakes that UTD's been committing.
Things are getting a little out of hand
already,
and that almost was a wide open net, but it looks like UTD will survive for the time being. They also don't allow an early goal from UTA. So, again, you'll take whatever performance metrics you can gather at this point in the season. So far, so good. Another 3v1. Dalton just needs to touch Random Shy, and that he will. And UTD strikes first.
UTD's been going for this the entire series. These goal line sweeps, these run ahead in transition plays, and they've been so effective with them. It's a big reason why Game 2 was a little bit stressful, I think, for UT Arlington on their goal line, being forced around by having to dodge bump attempts, dodge demos, recover from bumps and demos, as we have lost our producer. So we'll get the production account back in here in just a second. Have a little radio broadcast with me and TJ as UT Dallas have another opportunity similar where they send a player up in transition, but this time UTA does get the save.
Well, production hasn't missed too much other than a very narrow bar-using save from UTA, and now Blippi could find another goal, but it's going to go right to Zora. The net's wide open, but Nava is able to get back and make something happen. Blippi, ball goes right back to him, and as you welcome yourselves back to the gameplay here, shout out our lovely producer Shaka for being quick with it, you get to see a triple commit from UTA, so welcome back to the least unexpected thing that's happened this game.
A little chaotic, but again, Arlington are surviving these chaotic defensive moments. And Nava can turn this now into an opportunity moving forward. That ball leaked out and hit Random Shy's front bumper, but it wasn't going forward. It went out to the side to UTD and keep the ball there. This is a 1v1-ish. Blippi challenges Random Shy quickly, and Zora joins the fray. Dalton never actually had to play a ones moment right there. So UTD playing well-layered defense, and now they've got boost to clear.
UTD just has to continue to do what they've done all series, is by any means necessary. Take control of your boost, take control of the midfield, and play smart. Do not play rush. And Dalton, I mean, of anybody on this team, does that the most consistently, but does a great example of it as well. And Blippi, and also Zora able to find something crazy there, but that shot will not be on net. Zora also throws the ball away, but the net could just be open. Random Shot will look for a teammate. Nava, low boost. Blippi doesn't know that. Won't be able to get the Psycho. Random Shy shot on net. Triple commit for UTD. Counterattack for Nava. Nobody has a lot of boost for UTA. A fake comes through, and Random Shy is completely thrown off. Blippi, no boost, but is still active in the play. 2 minutes left to go, and UTA needs something.
We'll start with Nava, Random Shot, with plenty of boost in the tank to get something going, but holding on to the ball at the midfield line has been an issue for UTA tonight. It has cost them goals, both in offense and on defense, a couple of times now. And in a series where goals have come at a premium outside of the final 30 seconds,
There we go.
they need one soon. Here's Caribou setting one up off the backboard. It's a drop-down pass, but Dalton covers it up before anyone can be there to shoot for UT Arlington. And UTD find an escape route off the back of that one stop. They break out, set up an opportunity to score, but UTA put together good defense.
Random shine, not a lot of boost, but will at least force Blippi into an awkward spot. Dalton also playing for the wrong team for a second. Will shed his teammate out of the way. Zora, decent 50 that Blippi will be able to find a fake. Might be able to find one more, but Nava's there to cut it off. 60 seconds left. UTA is surviving on defense, but are really struggling to A, have boost, and B, find a sliver of hope in the midfield. And Caribou, of all players, I think has to be the leader here.
He usually is in clutch moments. He's able to score some of the wildest goals I've seen in the final 30 seconds of games, but will he get the opportunity to? That's the big question. Zora pokes the ball around him and has Dalton on the backboard. I like what UTD is thinking, but they've got to be careful now. And Blippi's been a great decision maker. As the third man in offense for UTD, knows when to turn around to the midfield line, knows when to keep the play going in offense, and now he's going to have to respawn. Hopefully he knows which side, as UTA move down the field past center, but no shot connects. Zora was in the way.
No shot or save, but Nava will look for his teammate to go back once again. Caribou is there. Backboard into Dalton's back end, and Nava has a chance to go middle. That he will. Blippi tap out. Caribou is there, but it's a great 50 made from Zora. Now Random Shot will try to find one more dying chance, but just like that, the season could die right here. That's a double commit. Net might just open up. An awkward tap for Random Shy. He doesn't get bumped. Caribou's got a chance. Will go for the 50. It will indeed bounce down, and no matter what you thought may happen, UTD survive.
They won with the majority of one-goal score lines here. 1-0, 2-1, 3-2. UTD wins such close games. It tells you a lot about what UTA could have been if they don't double commit with less than 10 seconds left in defense in the first two games of this series. So close for the Mavericks. But UT Dallas move on, a 3-0 sweep to start their lower bracket campaign. And we've been no strangers to lower bracket runs, deep lower bracket runs in SEL playoffs have passed.
I must say, though, somebody's got to be negative here. You're going to play either George Mason or KSUB. So it's no easy game, but I do believe that UTD will remain the favorites regardless of who wins. And that series will be a lot of fun to witness as well. But very nice from UTD. A very nice, easy, consistent series. Something that, at least in our experience casting this team, have been rare to come by. But I am happy for Oasis and the gang, and we're excited to see if they can potentially make a run to LAN.
It breaks the streak of losses in the SEL, and it is worth mentioning the majority of those losses came against the two Bruton Parkers in Cumberland. So quality L's, I think in Game 5 overtimes as well. So it's a bit of a misleading stat, but UTD does get a win on the board in the Southeastern Esports League. And as well, I think it's worth mentioning that if they do get through George Mason or Kennesaw State, you play the loser of Bruton Parker in Florida. So it does not get any easier once you get to the top six. So crazy stacked SEL playoff bracket. And we've seen that here with a lower seeded team that came from the last chance qualifier in UTA playing UTD, who was a top 4 winner's circle team, so close in an elimination match.
And it's a nice precursor to the chaos that the SEL playoffs always bring as well. And tomorrow we have winners semis, and then not only losers round 1, but losers round 2 as well. So things are only getting started. There's going to be some absurd matchups both on and off stream tomorrow. And I do hope that we can cover as much as we physically can during the broadcast tomorrow. But at least we got the Texas rivalry one more time here on stream.
Absolutely, and that is the last time I think we'll see it for the spring semester, at least. So you have to wait for the summer or the fall to get some more of that as UTD moves on. And we will have Florida versus Bruton Parker as our first on-stream match, and that's going to be a big one. Winner clinches top 3 in the SEL, potentially a date with Cumberland or James Madison if they pull off a massive upset tomorrow. But the loser has to fall into the depths of a dangerous lower bracket and potentially play that UTD team that we just saw scrap out a victory over UT Arlington. But That does do it for our impromptu special presentation of UT Arlington and UT Dallas. Thank you so much for watching this and State of the SEL. We will have Rocket League, of course, sponsored by MSI, as per the norm, tomorrow at 7 Central Time, 8 Eastern. Myself, TJ, and Shaka in the production booth for that one. So, shout out TJ, shout out Shaka, shout out Infernosis for tuning in tonight, being with me in the booth. I'm Mr. Bepic. We'll see you tomorrow.